Hello again, and welcome to another episode. I publish this every week just to give a little space between different episodes. And last episode, we were talking about the role of government in an ideal society, where you have the highest skilled individual that is voted into place by his or her peers instead of general population. Now, how does that work to ensure that corruption doesn't creep in, and that you actually have the better candidates that don't have an ulterior motive? One thing is that I recommend is that candidates themselves can be, as well as potential voters, can be all selected using judiciously an AI system. So artificial intelligence, it can sift through professional profiles, pictures, videos, articles, mentions, to decipher, well, who are the experts of each field that would fit either as candidates. So let's say for each voting cycle of 4 or 5 years, you need a leader for each ministry to lead, right? In each ministry: education, citizenry and citizenship, foreign affairs, lawmaking, economy and trade, infrastructure, judiciary, security, health. These are those that I've identified, in my opinion, that would be ideal to cover everything that's can't be immediately decentralized. So these are all generally supervisory ministries, by the way. But anyway, I'm sidetracked. The AI would be able to identify, well, which top individuals in the country, citizens, would be considered or potentially could be considered as leaders. So let's say 10 leader candidates per ministry, right, or per entity, and then also identify, well, who should be able to vote for each. Again, I love democracy. I think it's a great idea. I think the statistics show that we can avoid disaster through democracy, where we were not selecting the proper, totally bad candidates most of the time. Like, remember, in our history, we've had a number of examples of democracies that have voted in individuals that were ultimately terrible for the world. Most notably, at least in the West, we constantly mention Adolf Hitler. He was a member of the Nazi Party, which was a political party, legitimate, and he was voted in by democratic process into power. Well, the people at the time thought it was a good idea to vote that person in. It was a popular vote. Everybody could vote. And there was a lot of suffering in Germany. There was special propaganda and conditions and media and information that circulated that allowed this person to be voted in democratically. And these are outlier cases, but they do occur. What happens is that you can't get high quality individuals, or rarely get the best candidate, because people can't decipher who is the gradation of good among good candidates, usually because they're not part of that, and they're not knowledgeable enough in politics or in economics or in whatever the position is about. They're not an expert themselves, able to decipher good from best, right? So you also have issues. Now, in most democracies, what we have, which causes a lot of corruption, is you have candidates that need to be financed into campaigns, or they have to decide on their own to campaign. Like ideologically, it sounds great because, well, you need free will. You need to decide. You need to want to take that job or that position. So, in essence, that sounds great, but there is a certain level of self-interest, I guess, in taking that decision. I'm not saying every politician is actually running for selfish reasons. I don't know case by case, but there is a certain level of self-interest. You desire to take the position nominally is a level, even though it can be very, very minor, to take that position, take that medal, and take those responsibilities. It's not an entirely, giving yourself to the population type of decision. So what I recommend is that you let the AI, which is completely unbiased, choose the better candidates out of all the experts in the nation for each different ministry, using intelligent probabilities, using comments, all the information that's on the web. And there's a lot of data, and more as time moves on. So these candidates are selected, and they didn't choose to be on the list. They're just selected out of 10 for each ministry. And some candidates, when they receive the notice that they are a candidate, may choose to decline because maybe some people just don't want that level of responsibility. That's freedom as well. But those that do want to serve, well, they remain on the ballot, so to speak. Okay. That way, you do eliminate a lot of chances for people that have like pure self-interest. They're really great at their field, and that's just about it. And you have different levels of self-interest inside the group. And then we have, again, the AI chooses who's able to vote for those. Like, again, the ideology here is to try to give a vote, at least a vote, to everybody, but they have to have a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of knowledge in the field they're voting for. So we have, in my case, I selected 9 ministries. So potentially people can have up to 9 votes, or 0, because they may not be of age in a nation where maybe you need a minimum age to vote. And I do recommend there is a minimum. You can't be 6 years old and vote, because ultimately you don't have the experience. You don't know anything. So you can't be an expert at anything. You don't know what's best about any field. But at a certain age, you do accumulate experience through education, through professional experiences, through volunteering, through anything you want. And you're posting stuff on the web. You're sharing through social media. You become a certain level of expert, even if it's not your career or professional expertise. Maybe you're writing a lot of articles. Like maybe an example would be a plumber that has a very strong interest in foreign policy, and he writes stuff in professional networks about foreign policy issues and the military and whatever it is. Well, that person, if he does that a certain amount of time, the AI will pick it up and start to determine, well, okay, well, you're a plumber. You've been doing plumbing for 20 years. Well, you can vote for the leadership of infrastructure, but because of your hobby and your knowledge, you can also vote for the leadership of foreign policy, because you just have a certain level of knowledge that is sufficient for you to make a good decision for the leadership among the candidates that are at the very, very top of the haystack, right? And then we can have an automated system that can be completely decentralized. We don't want the government to actually control that. We want them to supervise it, but we want this system to be unbiased. So it could be a privately set up system that is decentralized, perhaps using blockchain technology to make it all secure, and one vote for everybody. It could be Ethereum, whatever it is. And then nobody controls the results or the system at all, not even the private sector, so no private interest on the information. And votes go in. The proper best leader for whatever is going on in the world at that particular point in time is voted as leader for that ministry. And then that person can select a proper staff to do the job and replace the previous, so there would be a transition from minister to minister, for example, right? And then these different ministries would run semi-independently from each other, because they each have a very specific job, like a job description, if you want, for the rest of the population. And so they need to ensure to do their job, but they also need to communicate with all the others. For example, in a diagram, I put the lawmaking ministry in the center because that's the entity that makes regulations and laws responsible for if there is such a thing in that nation, a constitution of some sort, or legal documentation that defines a nation's ideologies and represents the type of direction that people want. So that's their job. They are lawyers, policymakers, and whatnot, and they're doing that. So whatever they produce needs to be respected and looked into and followed through by the other ministries. And it's the same for security, same for health, same for everybody else. Like each decision from each ministry has to be communicated with transparency, both to the population, who are the voters that are allowed to comment, criticize, but also to the other ministers, so that they can very rapidly and dynamically communicate and know what's up, what's on the agenda for the other ministry before they start taking a decision, and they can intelligently move forward, taking good decisions on behalf of the rest of the population in order to keep things moving forward. Now, a lot of people are probably reacting very strongly to this video and the last one, where I was telling people that essentially I'm going to remove some under the system, we're removing some votes, and some voters may not vote at all, and it's a different model. It's based on research. It's based on human behavior. We're not sacrificing our rights. We're just modifying how the voting system works to allow for better outcomes. And we use our artificial intelligence and decentralized systems that are possible and available now to remove any potential bias in the processes, the voting processes. And hopefully this type of governance would allow us to go to the next level and remove most, if not almost all, the potential corruption, while keeping high quality candidates in. And that means better results for everybody, right? And we can always have an accountability layer when decisions, because it should be all transparent on the web, everything that's happening for every ministry, and each decision as they process through to implementation and whatnot. There has to be a review process in particular by the experts in the fields, but also by the general population. Everybody should have a voice and criticizing everything. Doesn't matter if they are experts or not, because everybody should have a voice. Although, because we're dealing with an online system, we could give more weight to the opinions of the experts in the proper field, using, again, some kind of login blockchain type of system, where people are recognized for also their expertise and their again, it's not to remove the voices of people, but to weigh results towards high quality. And we can do that. And if some minister is trying to pass something that is clearly systemically unpopular, then other ministries can be called upon to take a look at what's going on. And maybe they're requesting this from them, and maybe there's a need for something to be unpopular. So maybe they weigh in and say, well, I know the people really don't want this, but every other ministry gives thumbs up because this is absolutely needed. And because we're experts, we have the foresight to know that this is going to be good in 5-10 years, even though perhaps the general population at large, the average, probably doesn't see really the benefits of this. And this is actually probably useful. Because most people don't really think long term, especially if they don't know that domain. So having these kind of systems in place where even something that's unpopular can still go through, if all the other experts in the other ministries agree, and especially the other experts in the same field, they also say, I know it's not popular, but this is probably the best thing to do, then it can still go. And also, if it's the opposite, if the other ministries say this is crackpot, and the experts of that particular field in particular say, you're right, general population, this is not a good idea, then the mechanism could remove the leader and make some changes accordingly, because obviously this is a bad thing, and the population has a voice and agrees, and it doesn't fly, right? But we rely essentially on a secure artificial intelligence online system with transparency to determine what process is actually going properly and what isn't. It's not a person that can have bias that should take that kind of a decision. It should be the AI that kind of says, well, this is a red flag. Now leaving it to the process and the population and the experts and the other ministries to say, okay, look into this because this is weird. This is not a popular thing. Let's look into this and see to make sure this is actually a good policy or a good decision. All right. Now, finally, a final point because this is getting a little bit long. How about the top leader? Like in most countries, you have a prime minister or a president, right? That is considered being like the #1 for the whole nation. I don't believe we need this. The population is the leader, like the entire population. It's decentralized. There shouldn't be like some kind of monarch type figurehead, even though it's a prime minister that has no direct power. We don't need somebody that has more power than anybody else. We don't need a leader that has more power than the other leaders. We've segmented their ministries according to their responsibilities and areas of expertise, and that's good. So you have like 9 leaders that are equal to one another. They just have different jobs and different responsibilities. Some ministries will be bigger than others, bigger budgets and all that stuff. That's not a problem. That doesn't mean you're more powerful. But we don't need to have like a leadership figure. We need a system guided by the population to kind of manage things. However, we do need a representative to generally speak, because for practicality purposes, to speak with other nations and to represent our interests, knowing in his bag of tools what's going on and what all the ministries desire, what is better for the people, advising and putting in some information into this person. And this person should be just the leader of foreign affairs, because that's their expertise. These are the diplomats. These are the people that negotiate. So who better than the top national diplomat to talk with other national leaders, whoever they are? It's not a presidential job. It's not a prime minister job. It's just he's our national diplomat. That's it. That's his job. And probably this same leader, because that's, again, his job is communication mostly, is probably also able to communicate things from that going on from the outside, communicate that to domestically to the people as well. So it goes both ways. The person, foreign affairs, talks to other leaders of the nations and brings in information from the outside in to spread out as needed if there's a need for such a thing, because the media ultimately does usually a great job at bringing in information from outside in. But this is generally the model that I think would work really well moving into the future, where again we're pushing down all the infrastructure and all this, not infrastructure, sorry, all the systems that we have, and we're building something new. And this type of governance, I believe, would do very well, simply because we're putting people that have no self-interest or very little. We're kind of putting it up without their desire to do so, and we have a system that allows the elite, like the best of the best, to be in those positions to take decisions for us, and the people in its entirety is used and engaged to be the watchdog of it all, and to push out ideas and comments especially according to their own level of expertise and their own area of expertise, in a more direct fashion. So it's really the people, by the people, for the people, again, until you can decentralize some of these departments, because some of the ministries you can probably dissolve over time after a while when there's more automation, more interconnectivity, and more ways for us to interactively connect with each other and take decisions with each other expertly. And that's going to come eventually. Now, one of the auxiliary benefits of all these, of all of this, is that it's very likely super cheap to run. So it's efficient, and that's really good, because we don't want to have a bloated economy. We want to give as much power to the people as far as executing and deploying or delivering decisions. So the private sector is heavily solicited and competing against each other to deliver the best. And we're not expecting this government to do everything. It's basically just taking decisions and giving the opportunities for the people and organizations like corporations and companies to actually deliver on promises and on ideas, and that allows the economy to keep rolling very efficiently, because, as you know, competition is a good driver, innovation is an extremely good driver, and I think we'd have a lot more communication this way with government. And another final benefit is that since the having a vote or 2 or 3 or 4 is based on merit, on participation, I think it would be an extremely good extra benefit, I guess, for people that choose to participate more in society in different ways and contributing knowledge and learning, because they get the opportunity perhaps to be one of those leaders and guide us with their expertise if they're the best. But at the very least, they get the opportunity to have a say in who will be put into those positions of subjective power. All right, well, that's going to be it for now. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the role of corporations and companies and how I see them differently structured under the law. Anyway, I'll get to that the next time. All right, bye-bye for now.